Welcome, everybody. My name is Roberto Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the GFCC, the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. If you have not heard about us or if this is your first time here, the GFCC is a global multi-stakeholder membership organization. We have four types of members: universities, corporations, government agencies, and private sector councils, confederations, industry chambers, and alike. It's great to have you here with us today. This is the fourth Building Competitiveness session. We're deploying this series of online events in partnership with the Council on Competitiveness of Greece and the Delphi Economic Forum. We have an amazing group of people from Greece, Portugal to talk here today about how we actually create the connections. How do we weave the innovation and competitiveness fabric, how we engage stakeholders across sectors to advance innovation and competitiveness. I will explain a bit about our session today, but I want to leave the invitation for all of you to be part of the conversation. You can use the chat, you can use the Q&A feature on Zoom to share your questions. The session is always being streamed on YouTube. Before I turn and introduce our speakers, I want to turn to Simos Anastasiopoulos, the president of Compete Greece, who has been an amazing partner, not just for the series of online sessions, but also for our upcoming Global Innovation Summit. Simos, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roberto, and thank you for your kind words. And good evening, or good morning, rather, depending on where we're coming from, to all of you that you're here with us today. I'm very proud to be part of this panel for one more time. This is a series of conversations that will lead to the Global Innovation Summit that is going to be held in Greece this year. From the 14th up to 17th of November, the whole community is going to gather here in Athens at the beginning to talk about competitiveness and about innovation. And then we are going to visit Ioannina, a city that has served as an example for Greece in these latest years because of the developments in the innovation sector. It gives me great pleasure to be part of the organization of this year, along with Delphi Economic Forum. COPGR is mainly organizing this conference. And it is even a greater pleasure today to be able to be in a position to introduce to you the mayor of the city of Ioannina, Mr. Moses Elisar. And it gives me great pleasure for several reasons. One is because Ioannina is the birthplace of my father, the place that he loved, and he spent much of his younger years and where he studied. And I'm sure that he would also have been very proud to see today that I can bring something back to our place. A place that makes all of us proud, because Ioannina has developed, and under the leadership of today's mayor, to become part of the innovation scene. Ioannina has something to teach us, and I'm sure that the visit there will persuade all of you that Greece can advance, that the whole reform project has moved from actually the center of the cities to the regions, and some interesting things are happening there. It's also a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Alexis Kontis from Deloitte. Deloitte is a founding member of CompetGR, and also in the case of Mr. Kapatos, a partner in Deloitte, is the president of our advisory committee in CompetGR. Also, Mr. João Pereira is today the head of innovation from the Catholic University in Portugal, is with us today. And Portugal has served as an example for Greece in these years. And his presence here today, I'm sure that will contribute majorly to the conversation. Thank you very much, Roberto. We are expecting all of you in November in Athens, and I can tell you that the program is already seems to be very interesting, with visits to the Academy of Athens. The mayor of Athens is going to host us also, and a great dinner with the Prime Minister at the Museum of Acropolis. Back to you, Roberto.
Simos, thank you so much for your remarks. Thanks for your hospitality and partnership. As we said, this is the fourth session that we're having. We talked about the the global landscape, things that are happening in the world today. We're going into an era marked by new shocks. It's a bumpy road. At the end of 2021, we launched in the GFCC an agenda that we called Frame the Future. And the concept for that agenda was to weave 5 future-defining topics into competitiveness strategies: innovation, sustainability, resilience, partnerships, and inclusiveness. Continuing the series of conversations, we talked about place, how important it is to understand the assets that you have on hand and to build competitiveness starting from what you have on the ground. We talked about priorities, how to prioritize initiatives. And one key topic that we are addressing today is how to create the connections that are needed. It's probably easier to talk than to do that, to work across sectors, to connect industry with government, to connect government with academia, academia with industry. And this is why we're here today, to talk about how can we build those connections? How can we create the social glue that's needed for those connections to happen, to advance innovation and competitiveness? Please, again, be part of the conversation. We will be sharing information and a few links here on the chat along the way. The way with this will work, we'll have an initial round with our speakers, and I wanted to start with you, Mayor Eliseth. Maybe if you could share a bit about Ioannina, but also how do you do as a leader to create this connections cross-sector, to engage industry with the things that you're doing, to engage the university. You come from the university, where I think, as I was telling you, I think it's great to have a mayor who is a scientist. Maybe your cross-sector experience, I'm sure, would have many things to tell to our audience. So, Mayor, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
First of all, allow me to thank you for the kind invitation to this session and discussion. I would also thank for organizing the Congress, in next Congress, and in Ioannina, the field trip in Ioannina. I think it is a unique experience to look at the progress of our city. As it is well known, Ioannina has been mentioned in international media outlets as the emerging Silicon Valley of Greece. Since a number of non-Greek companies has foreseen that talent bringing arena come from our university and has step by step invested in it. The positive outcome of this investment has been, first of all, the media buzz and the cultivation of a little ecosystem which grows in a steady pace. Other global stakeholders and tech companies have read the news and have followed the path. Students and tech experts see Ioannina as a working place destination, enriching the local tech working force.
Mayor, maybe if I could, a very quick follow-up question. Are there any highlights in terms of industry sectors or technology areas that you see growing in your city?
Yes. First of all, there are factories in local products that is the most important economic power. That is poultry, that is water, that is milk products, but also high-tech companies like TeamViewer, like P&I, and other local companies now have been invested in local talents, and there is now a growing number of companies that invest in our area. This is very important for us because we live in a mountainous area, with a very productive university, and I think that Ioannina can be the emerging Silicon Valley in the western part, not only Greece, but also Balkans.
Thank you so much. We'll be back to that. João, I want to turn to you. You are in Lisbon. You come from Lisbon. Lisbon has been has become a major startup hub in the world, attracting the attention of people. We'll have a chance to explore different angles here. But what is the secret to make those connections, cross-sector connections, from your experience and the things that are happening in Lisbon?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Roberto, and also to say it is a pleasure to be here and to share our knowledge with all of you. So Lisbon has been quite a success story in creating a startup, an entrepreneurial ecosystem that is sustainable and world-leading. This has been a process that has taken about 2 decades. It started very slowly with government mandates of investment, specifically funding for companies, for partnerships, promoting the interconnection of sectors, the interconnection of universities and industries, and also by providing the basic infrastructure for investment. So there was the investment scene in Lisbon was fairly limited, in Portugal as a whole, in Lisbon in particular, and the government stepped in. It stepped in and created a set of funding schemes for seed, Series A level, so very, very basic, but committed and persistent. And it was that commitment, that persistence, that has allowed the system to grow, because that attracted then more funds and more startups. Also, we have created an environment wherein other people can come in, be it funds, fund managers, or entrepreneurs, and they can come to Lisbon and they find great conditions. Not only a UE, European Union or Schengen space people, but also third-party countries that can benefit from special visa programs like Startup Visa, Tech Visa, and similar initiatives that really facilitate the entry here. Also, the fiscal policies are fairly pliable, so it has been also a commitment by several governments to really invest in technology and also in formation. That was the last bit, so training. We have our universities are top-notch. I mean, Catholic University, talking about my own, is top-ranked, notably in management and business. And we create a pool of talent, and we attract a lot of talent that is extremely available, diverse in the cultural interesting setting. So you can come here and you find the right people. And finally, the role of the universities, again, Católica has created a dedicated innovation department recently, but it has followed through with a lot of innovative partnerships and a constant openness to markets and to other institutions. An example of this, for instance, is our international business platform that will allow all the knowledge of the university to be used by companies for internationalization purposes, so we can really leverage what we learn and research and give it outside to companies. And companies are interested, companies are eager. So that ecosystem has flowed very nicely and continues to grow.
John, thank you so much. You mentioned your comments. The way I hear then is that over the years, you put in place different tools, from small funds or seed funds, grants, of legal frameworks, the special visa system, etc. Who was championing that? Which stakeholder? Could you localize maybe one or two key stakeholders creating those things?
Actually, yes, we have governments, especially local authorities, have been very important. The government as a whole, definitely, and this has been an investment that Portugal, for instance, has made in training, for instance, the creation of PhD programs and the funding of those programs and research was very much government-led at the beginning of this century. So that was fundamental to create this pool of talent, and universities picked it up. So we have this balance between government and universities, and then the following of companies. So I would say that would be 1, 2, 3. So government providing the drive, universities picking it up and generating the talent and the ideas and the research and innovation, and then companies looking and say, maybe we should jump in the bandwagon and capitalize on this. And that was it.
Thank you, João. If you are watching, feel free to share your comments or questions. We will have time to take those. Alexis, I want to turn to you. You are the leader in Greece and outside whole southern region of Europe for this global innovation platform for Deloitte, trying to see how you can, across geographies, not just sectors, mobilize digital assets. But also you've been privileged in the sense that you've been working with big corporations, you've been working with startups. So how do you see those connections, right? How do you connect those different stakeholders? What's the secret to do that? And to connect them with government, so on, and advance innovation and competitiveness.
Thank you very much. A very interesting question, but allow me to start my small short speech by saying a big bravo to the organizing such interesting sessions, and of course thanking you for allowing me to share my views, and hopefully you will find them quite interesting. Before I answer your question, just give me a few minutes to give you the Greek perspective and how Greece, coming out of the, let's say, has emerged stronger out of the 10-year economic crisis, which has followed the pandemic and is struggling to tackle now the geopolitical turmoil that threatens to severely affect all European economies and more, like all other countries. So undoubtedly a major enabler for further economic development for an economy like the Greek one, which is coming out quite strong out of the crisis in the time of great turbulence, of course, and transformation, is how we will build the innovation capacity and capability of all industries and regions across the country in order to compete effectively in the new economic environment that will arise. So what I wanted to say is that to recover and thrive to the new normal that is coming up is much more volatile and uncertain than new normal. So we must embrace change and lead. And how do we lead? We lead by requiring through resiliency that is not measured with the ability to return to how things were in the past, but rather to learn from the past and become much more innovative for our future. So innovation in Greece and for Deloitte needs a much more holistic perspective, embracing and involving, as you said, all stakeholders from academia, government, enterprises, and regional administration, in order to become a true enabler of increased competitiveness and the positive effect on people's lives and the economy as a whole. That's why regions and cities, and we believe that in Greece as well, and as Deloitte, who create the grounds for such ecosystems to grow and flourish, they are the cornerstone of innovation development and the long-term competitiveness. And in order to go from local to global, we need to capture the local pretty well. So they constitute the necessary differentiator of economies that innovate in the long term, and they don't just base their competitiveness in fractional innovation efforts of, let's say, one region or one industry. So it's very important to collaborate across industries, across stakeholders, in order to democratize innovation, if I may say. So we need to create innovation systems and models that guarantee innovation can effectively tackle the three major challenges, according to, let's say, Deloitte and what we actually believe: decentralization, digitization, and decarbonization, in order to create a more sustainable and inclusive society of tomorrow and economy. Collaboration is the key to all of this. And in order to kick off the innovation journey, all stakeholders need to develop the right use cases to help them accelerate and maximize their impact, reset their operating models, and have more flexibility, agility, and scalability, and align their culture. Culture is very important. Innovation culture inside each organization is of utmost importance. And we at Deloitte, we believe strongly that this is the major differentiator for tomorrow. So coming to your question a bit later, I wanted to say that here at Deloitte Greece, we have established regional offices, a technology hub, and recently an innovation hub in major cities in Greece, namely Thessaloniki, Heraklion of Crete, and Patras, in an effort to capture the human capital dynamics of the country as a whole and offer a flexible working environment and aiming to come closer to our clients, academia, and decentralized government. So this is how we believe the way forward is, in order to interconnect all major stakeholders and bring the best out of them. Furthermore, at Deloitte Greece, we have a lot of, let's say, innovation programs going on. One of them involves the startup scale-up ecosystem, where we aim to act as the connector between the viable scale-ups, startups in the Greek ecosystem, with the established Greek companies that are mainly more old-fashioned, if I may call them, family-owned businesses which are not digital savvy, and bring them together with scale-up companies that offer more innovative and, let's say, digital solutions for their problems, and the problems that they're facing, mainly to disruption that also come from technology. And also the funding enterprises that are very important, because funding and access to funds is also very important for such an ecosystem to thrive and continue to develop, let's say, more innovative products. This is what I wanted to say. I could elaborate more, but I wouldn't like to jeopardize more of your time.
Thank you so much, Alexis. I think two things that you mentioned really caught my attention. This notion that, in your case, Deloitte, a professional services company, is in some way going more local, connecting with different talent pools in the country. So trying to adapt your structure and including your footprint in order to have more access to talent pools and plug those regions with your global network. The other thing is collaboration. And here comes a follow-up question to all of you. Mayor Elisa, João, Alexis, all of you, you've been working across sectors in some way. Mayor, you were a university professor, right? You've been involved with research. Then you moved to public sector, public administration. João, you were a scientist turned into business consultant, into entrepreneur, back to the university being a connector. You, Alexis, you've worked with big corporations, with public and private sector clients, with startups. For all of you, what do your experiences tell? What's maybe one recommendation that you would have about the how? How do you create the connections across sectors? What have you learned from your personal experiences working across sectors and having careers in different sectors that you believe everybody should know if they want to build the innovation connections in their own realities? Maybe I could start with you, João.
Thank you very much for the question, Roberto. It is indeed a fundamental aspect, as Alexis was saying. So collaboration is absolutely key, and especially now for universities, collaboration with all other sectors, private sector, social sector, government, etc., is fundamental for us to develop, to innovate, and to stay ahead and to keep our leading position. This is something that our university has been doing for quite a while. And one of the key aspects is to create that interface between a university and the exterior. So different sectors, different industries usually don't mix too well. A first contact may be awkward. You have different languages, different semantics, different concepts, and you can see the end goal. So the collaboration makes sense, but it's hard to really bring every piece together and to create a joint feasible project. And sometimes that is because of lack of connectors, lack of intermediate structures that really translate from one side to the other. So it requires a structure of diplomacy, so to speak. So it's really, people that have they can cross borders. They have been on the other side, whatever that side is. They understand the needs, the urgencies, the priorities, the language, and vice versa. So they can translate, they can present the big picture and allow other people to really focus on the operational aspect. But that strategic vision usually requires that intermediate side. So collaboration just out of the blue is usually, I would say, a non-starter, because if you don't have this initial key in place.
So thank you so much for that, Sean. The way I hear what you said is that for sure you need a vision, you need a leadership to have that, but you need organizational solutions, right? You need a team, you need the connectors to be in place to do that.
Exactly. So you layer, so I can interrupt, Robert, just clarify. So you layer the team, so with, from strategic, tactical to operation, and at the top of the team, you need to have those connectors. You need to have those bridge makers, so that the conversation can flow and impact and results can be achieved.
Thank you so much, Sean. Mayor Elisa, but your experience, how do you do that? How do you create those connections in Ioannina? And what would you say, what would you tell for people around the globe who also want to do that?
First of all, I have to mention that the strong collaboration between central government, universities and academic institutions and local authorities, including municipalities, as well as the private sector, is of paramount importance. I would like also to mention that the transparency and legal compliance is also very important. All the evidence that legal proceedings were followed and must be available and accurate. And secondly, citizens might have access to public structures in different policy areas to provide feedback either about problems in their everyday lives or innovative ideas. So I think that these are two key elements in our efforts, and from the assumption of my duties, we are trying to have this collaboration and to be more flexible and to overcome any bureaucracy problems exist.
Let me a quick follow-up here, Mayor. What have you learned being a researcher and an academic leader? What do you have learned that has helped you now in your current role as the mayor of Ioannina?
Yeah, the main problem until now in our country is that the universities were not well connected with the industry. That is a big problem that now with the new legislation we are trying to overcome, and I think we have succeeded in it. And I hope that in the next few years everything will change dramatically. That was the main problem during my research activity in the University Hospital. I'm a doctor. I have been involved in research activities, both basic and clinical research, but the results of our research remained in journals, in seminars, but it was too difficult to connect our results with the, let's say, pharmaceutical industry, even though there are pharmaceutical industries in our area. Now things have changed. From another point, as the mayor of the city, I try to collaborate both with the central government, with the university and its research activities of the university and institutions, and with the private sector.
Thank you for highlighting, I think, this aspect of legal frameworks, right? That in some way are the OS of societies, right? So we need to improve legal frameworks also to allow, to facilitate, maybe to speed up collaborations. Alexis, your recommendation, working across sectors, different profiles of companies, what would you tell people around the globe? Oh, this is one thing that you should pay attention to.
Yes, definitely. The gentleman that preceded my little speech now have covered most of the important factors, like collaboration, like, rigid legal or regulatory frameworks that will govern, let's say, the overall effort. But allow me to bring something on top of that we believe at Deloitte that is very important, and it's the people element. The people element into all these frameworks is the most important connector, the glue. And we talk about people, and when we talk about people, we talk about maybe students, maybe entrepreneurs, maybe employees, maybe government officials. All of this is the human element of what we're talking about. And instilling the proper culture in all stakeholders, in the human element of all stakeholders, for us is of utmost importance. Of course, as we say at Deloitte, we must make an impact that matters. So, the outcome of this culture must be positive and must have, let's say, a think out of the box concept that will create an impact that will matter in society, in profitability, in competitiveness, in whatever. But this cooperation must be based on the human element. And allow me to explain a little bit of what we try to do in Thessaloniki as Deloitte. Back in 2017, we have created a technology hub, a technology skill set hub, which at that time was quite an innovative approach to a common problem that Deloitte was facing across the globe, which was people skills scarcity. So what we did, we established this technology hub in Thessaloniki, and through the, let's say, attainment of highly skilled human capital from the northern Greece region, and also reskilling them into, let's say, main technology skill set, giving them technology skill set, either through our technology teams or through the universities, because, at some stage we could not find more people. So we went to the universities, and as Mayor Elisa mentioned, it was very important for us to connect with the universities, because the university is like the growing place of talent. And then we spoke with the university in Thessaloniki, and we came to close cooperation in order to get the talent from that university and channel it in our technology hub. And then through this technology hub, we are now serving with around, more than 900 employees, and soon enough there will be around 1,000. We are serving other Deloitte offices across Europe, giving them, let's say, the skill set necessary in order to add value and make an impact that matters to our clients. So I believe these two things, to summarize: human capital, and culture, instilling the culture and the skill set into the human capital through the collaboration and, of course, the effective cooperation under regulatory framework and the legal framework of all stakeholders is of utmost importance.
Alexis, I have a quick follow-up here, but I also wanted to share here, just share it on the chat for our colleagues in attendance here. We created something in the GFCC with our University Research on Leadership Forum, a group that was founded in 2016 with 40 university presidents coming from more than 20 nations. And we called that report that I just shared Convergence and Circulation. I think it touches upon some of the things that you have raised in this conversation, that we need to create a common language across sectors. And so we need to converge a way of working in some way. And the idea connected to that is that we need people like you, João, like you, Mayor, like you, Alexis, circulating across sectors, across different types of organizations to generate that convergence. One question that we have here, Alexis, from our colleague, Chad Evans. And Chad, first of all, thank you so much for being here today. It's your birthday, so happy birthday to you, Chad Evans. It has been amazing to be a friend and work with you over the years. The Council on Competitiveness in the United States, in your new Innovation Commission, Chad, has been doing a lot of work about place-based innovation. Chad has shared some of the documents and reports here, and I think it would be great if you could all check that. But Alexis, back to your point, Chad put a question here about, let's say, what are the methods or the frameworks that you can use to change the mindset, to instill this collaboration mindset that you just mentioned? I want to turn back to you, Alexis, and then Simos. I would like you to jump to join us here. I have a question. So Alexis, over to you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting question. I'm glad you asked, because you give me the ground to elaborate a little bit further. As I mentioned to you, the human capital element in all stakeholders, across stakeholders, is of utmost importance. So diversity, inclusion, they are the basic elements of symbiosis. And in order to have, let's say, a framework that fosters collaboration and effectively cooperation between all stakeholders, as you mentioned, Roberto, here we have João, here we have Mayor, here you have me, who come from different backgrounds. In order to be able to communicate effectively and cooperate effectively, it's very important to have an overall framework. This framework could be a business framework that we have here, let's say in Deloitte, where we, in a sense, guide the skill set, the basic skill set development, without jeopardizing, of course, the value of diverse mindset that everybody as an individual brings to the equation. And that's the most important thing for me. It's twofold. Having, of course, the framework within which we must all operate from different backgrounds, from diverse backgrounds, and in the same time, without hampering our, let's say, ideation capacity, our ability to create something innovative, something new that will stem from our individual experiences that we carry on our backs during our whole life. And maybe this comes from academia, this comes from, let's say, the more governmental agencies, or the more, let's say, business environment that each and every one of us comes from. I don't know if I answered the question, or if I gave ground for more questions, but you know, I'll be more than glad to elaborate further if you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Simos, talking about cross-sector collaboration, you are the founder, the founding president of Compete Greece. You've been building those alliances over the years. So since when we first met, and you were the president of the Hellenic American Chamber, and other roles that you have played, you've been a weaver, you've been a connector at the national level. What's the secret? How do you do that? How do you connect different sectors?
Thank you for this, Roberto. But I have to say that maybe for the first time in recent years, Greece, the administration in general, has approached its disadvantages and its problems in a more systematic way. And this has allowed organizations like the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce or Compete GR today to approach things differently. The ground became more fertile this way. The legislative procedure allowed us, for example, to have more collaboration with the academia. Mayor Elisaf mentioned the problem very clearly before. In the past, for example, the collaboration between industry and universities, the academia was unthinkable then. So although the Greek professors ranked among the first in Europe in terms of papers or in terms of theoretical, theoretical work, this rarely translated into patents and products. The government this time changed the legislation. Not only this is allowed nowadays, but it's also promoted. And a very good example we will see in Ioannina. I think this is the work. Being part of Compete, we have identified the problems in from the early beginning, and I believe that we also have been instrumental with the aid of universities or organizations like Deloitte to approach the subject and promote solutions to the government, propose rather solutions to the government. And we are very happy that some of them, several of them, have been incorporated into laws or into new practices. So it is actually the environment that has changed, the mentality that is changing, and that has allowed our organization, others also, to proceed with in a more effective way. But I think you approach it correctly. You have to do some interweaving in the past. Have other Compete, for example, have several organizations, we have several industries and academia today. And so all of this has allowed us to have a larger audience, people that we can communicate with, pass new ideas, discuss them, and come up with policies. And this has paid off this time.
And we will know more about that when we all meet on the ground for the Global Innovation Summit in November. And I'm sure that my colleagues Vanessa and Simone will share here the link for the event page. If you are watching the session, we would love to have you in Athens and Ioannina in November. João, I want to turn back to you. As we were talking before, you were a scientist, turning entrepreneur, business consultant, etc. But you worked with the legislative branch, creating or advising, let's say, the whole lawmaking process. And we just heard from our colleagues here about how important it is to update legal systems, right? So what have you learned, or maybe what are some of the things that you've seen or recommendations on how can we better, or different countries or regions could better engage with government, and especially the legislative branch, to update the legal frameworks that in some way are behind everything that we're talking here about?
Well, absolutely, Roberto. That is actually quite the challenge. Let me tell you that it was extremely rewarding, but also frustrating in terms of work at times, because usually what happens is that the political cycle is too dominant, and you have a lot of urgent things that overtake the important matters. So urgency on top of importance is really not the right mix, but that is usually what politics is about. A good example I can give you is actually from Finland, in terms of they have a committee for the future where they try to keep the eyes on the long term. They don't miss the forest for the trees. They have a long-term plan. They analyze the impact of policies, and they warn or advise in case some of those impacts are too significant to be ignored, and the legislative body should act. So in practice, what usually happens is when we can actually achieve change, that change is placed on top of existing legislation, which is often inefficient because lack of clarity ensues. And of course, then you'll have to be very reliant on a judicial system that can clog up very easily and not give you the answers that you need. So the key aspect here is really, I would say, two: long-term vision, to have that assurance of long-term ideals and impact, and two, political courage, and courage to really look back and say, this is not working, so clean slate, and let's do it again.
So break the barriers, you need courage to not just break the status quo, but also to break barriers across sectors. I think I do come from Brazil, as
Yeah.
you know, as we talked. So one thing it is to change the legislation, especially in the, let's say, the continental legal tradition, let's say not common law. One thing is to change the legislation. The other thing is how the judiciary branch interprets that legislation, understands those changes. And I think you mentioned both things. So working with legislators, but also preparing those who are making the legal interpretations, enabling them to weather those. Okay,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just for everybody to know, you've been advising a legal, let's say, legislative process. Was that at the city level, the national level, the European Union? Or what's your, because I know you've been an advisor you work with the parliament, right?
Yes, it was at the national level and for an opposition party, not for the government party. And the key aspect there is that really you have a broader perspective, or you gain a broader perspective of the importance of legislation, but also the importance of the full integrated value chain of a law, because a law by itself isn't worth much if you don't have the executive and the judiciary elements also aligned. So if you create a law that is a great law, but then you don't provide the resources downstream for that to be executed, then it's just something on paper.
I think this is a great concept, actually, a business consultancy, let's say, concept and framework. You really need to understand the value chain, the legal value chain, the value chain of law. Thanks for sharing that. Mayor, Alexis, I want to turn to you again, maybe switching the gears here a bit. There are different types of innovations, right? One type of problem is to enable traditional industries and sectors to innovate, maybe to use new technologies, to use digital technologies. Another type of problem is maybe to build more forward-looking things, some deep tech solutions and things that would be new to the world, right? And this is also, it's very usual. And the other day I was talking with colleagues at Piraeus Bank, Mayor, actually Christos Megalou, our Piraeus Bank is a member of the GFCC. It's the main bank in Greece today. Christos is the CEO. And Christos was mentioning that they're launching a new digital bank. And that new digital bank will be headquartered in Ioannina, right? And they're really partnering with the university, recruiting people there. They have, let's say, an amazing group of colleagues there. So they have Natech, a technology partner, a company, digital company from Ioannina, right? But how do you see this thing about really working to advance innovation and helping traditional industries in your city or in different places where you are working with this other thing, creating the frameworks for, let's say, bioinformatics or genetics, as you do, João? So how do you see that in your city when you think about the future profile of industry, Mayor? Let's say advancing digitalization, but also maybe working in health sciences. How do you combine those things in practice?
Yes, it's very important. What happens in Ioannina today is very important. I would like to thank for their initiative and for the selection of the city of Ioannina to invest. And as the mayor of the city, I will do my best for everything for not being problems in all this process. I think that we should focus more on the research activities of our university. For my profession, I'm professor of medicine. It's very important, the results. We are very high in the rank of universities. In the University of Ioannina has a very good reputation internationally. But we need medical school is also of I think is one of the best medical schools in Balkans. So we have to have the results of our research activities and the genetic results, clinical results, experimental results, and we should incorporate them into industry. That is a field that we have not worked, and we will try in this field. I think it's very important. But I should tell from the previous discussion, but we need rules that which should be not affected by changes of government, by changes of local elections. That is very important to have stable rules that will be respected independent of the political parties, all the mayors, because next year we have elections. I hope that the next mayor should follow my steps. That is very important in the political arena.
So thank you, Mayor. So really highlighting the importance of certain stability in terms of long-term vision and drive. I want to turn to you, Alexis. So what's your take about this combination of, let's say, type 1 or type 2 innovation, how to address those in practice? For instance, you've been working with digital assets within the Deloitte ecosystem, right? So how do you see that, the potential to deploy across the board and advance productivity in the economy because you're using better tools, right? But also combining that with maybe creating more science-based deep tech innovations. So in the different hubs where you're present in Greece, but also in general.
Thank you very much. What I want to say is that we need to create innovation models and ecosystems that guarantee that innovation can happen anywhere and everywhere, but in a more structured and democratized manner. And that all stakeholders involved in this equation of the innovation, which are, let's say, 3 or 4 set of stakeholders, they have an equitable benefit that to take out of the value addition. In Greece, and Deloitte in Greece is part of, let's say, a global innovation framework of Deloitte that is trying to do exactly that thing, is trying to bring benefit to our clients through innovation that happens from, let's say, the creation of digital assets. And allow me to give you an example of how these things happen within Deloitte, because with Deloitte is a small ecosystem. And of course, what Mayor mentioned about continuity and, let's say, stability in the creation of that framework and the continuation, as well as the collaboration, the strong collaboration between industry and research institutions, which are, let's say, the forefront of innovation creation. So we have ideation, and on the other side, we have commercialization and product development. So if we try to have this roadmap between ideation, product development, and then product commercialization streamlined, then we have succeeded, let's say, on the 80% of this journey. So coming back to Deloitte, what we try to do within Deloitte, and this is rather important, is we give the ability to all our employees across the globe to create or come up with ideas that are innovative in a sense of service provision for our clients. Some of these ideas are really, let's say, important and nice and innovative. So there is a committee that through a specific framework comes up and says, creates some of these ideas into products. So we have ideation and product development, and then we try to commercialize it through a global network of Deloitte across the globe. And then we can see if, let's say, the commercialization is one of the core elements. So this road trip, this journey, innovation journey within Deloitte is, let's say, a microcosmos of the bigger world where similar things could happen with, let's say, more varied stakeholders, because here in Deloitte, within Deloitte, we have a business framework under which we operate. And there is not, let's say, of course, there's a legislative framework from bringing one product from one country to another, GDPR, we have all these frameworks, but we try to innovate within a context, within a business context. Now, if we can have this context, let's say, enlarged to include also academic institutions, government agencies, varied enterprises from across the sectors or differently with different needs, then this would be let's say, innovation framework that we believe could work and could increase the competitiveness of our economy, the competitiveness of our clients, and thus our economy, and definitely make an impact that matters to all our people within our country, and within Deloitte, within the stakeholders, within our country, and within the globe. So this is, let's say, this more decentralized but still rigid framework of innovation is what we believe is the way forward. And without, let's say, forgetting all the things about culture, people, because people is the real ammunition of innovation. Without people, we cannot do anything, because, you know, machines usually, or until now, cannot really innovate. They're just enablers.
Yep. Thank you. João, over to you, but keeping this, let's say, this topic, and we have 5 minutes to go here. If you are watching, I know there's a colleague with the hand raised. Please share your question here. I will try to include your question, but please type it here on the chat. João, how do you see this combination, in your case, in Lisbon, in Portugal, of, let's say, type 1 and type 2 innovation, right? One is really to deploy digital models and maybe some of those that are coming from other parts of the globe or solutions. And the other one, really, it's about driving deep tech, science-based innovation. You come from, let's say, type 2 deep tech innovation. How do you see that combination in practice, and what are the differences, and how can we advance both?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Roberto, because that is actually very pertinent and difficult in practice. That one follows the other usually, because they have very different time cycles and funding requirements. So let's say that the digital deployment is it's not easy, of course it isn't, but it's quicker. You understand on a quicker basis if things are going to work or not, and at a very lower investment level. In terms of deep tech, sometimes you have to have a 10 to 15 year development, for instance, if you're talking about therapeutics. And this contrasts with the VC fund cycle, which is usually 10 to 12 years. So liquidation and exit becomes a serious problem for that. So you need a very mature ecosystem in terms of collaborations, in terms of academia, in terms of funding and knowledge, to actually develop a deep tech approach to innovation. So what Lisbon has done is really focused on the first type, so really quick deployment. We have a great funding basis for seed and Series A, but if you go on to Series B and C, so higher levels of funding, we're talking about 10, 20 million plus and longer development cycles, you really need to go out. So the system isn't there yet. What we have done actually, and this was not so much in Lisbon, but near Coimbra, in the north of Portugal, we have created an ecosystem for biotech and medtech companies that are able to leverage the existing knowledge of the country and attract foreign investors. So that you need to really have that external international partners to have the full gap bridged. You cannot do that alone at this stage in Portugal, in principle.
Thank you, João. We're approaching the end of our session, so I want to give each one of you, let's say, 45 seconds for your final recommendation, starting with you, Alexis.
Thank you very much. So to kick off the innovation journey, all the stakeholders of the ecosystem, I believe, should develop the right use cases to help them accelerate and maximize their impact. and especially the social impact of their innovation, reset their operational model for significantly higher agility, flexibility, and scalability, and most importantly, align their culture to the new conditions and the new fast-paced innovation environment. And finally, adopting new technologies, capabilities in order to enable the efficient strategy execution, involving all the innovation goals incorporated in all the strategies of the individual stakeholders of the ecosystem. That's of utmost importance. All the stakeholders must have incorporated the innovation goals and strategies in their own organizations for it to succeed. That's my key takeaway.
Thank you, Alexis. Mayor Elisaf, your recommendation.
Very briefly, I think that the key elements are strong collaboration between all partners, flexibility, transparency, and inclusive policy.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. Inclusive policies. João, your recommendation.
Thank you. I would say an element of translation, to have that ability to speak across borders and have those translators in place in terms of people, in terms of interfaces and resources, to have a risk perception and risk culture on both sides of the fence, academia, government, and as well as private sector and public sector overall, to have that ability to go beyond the usual borders of action. And finally, this aspect of people and culture, as Alexis was saying, which is fundamental, really promoting the reskilling or upscaling of people and human resources for they not only to connect and communicate, but also to be completely up to date and as capable as possible.
Ron, thank you so much. When you say translation, I understand translation across sectors, but also
Yes.
translation across borders, especially if you want to go into more, say, the deep tech game. And thanks for that. Simos, your final word, and for all of you, we have a tradition here, Mayor Alexis and João, we always take a final GFCC picture. But before that, your final consideration, Simos.
Today, I only recommend that you all participate at the Global Innovation Summit in November in Athens, and that you take part in our field trip to Ioannina. Because if you were impressed today by what you heard from all of the panel and Mayor Elisaf, I'm sure that you will be more surprised when you visit the center as well as the local areas in Greece.
Thank you so much. For you who are watching here today, this session, the previous ones, and other materials are available on the GFCC YouTube channel. We will share the link here with you. I have one key takeaway. One of the things that I've done in my life was ready to work in manufacturing, lean manufacturing consultancy. And the conversation here today made me remember something that Edward Deming was really about when talking about quality management in the past, deep knowledge. You really need to understand the ecosystem. You really need to understand the whole process or the legal value chain, as Ron has said. You need to understand the global connections and what are the assets that are in hand, Alex has highlighted. You need to understand what's behind what is really setting the stage for this type of collaboration that we're talking, as the mayor said. So deep understanding, I think it's something that really sticks to my mind when we think about moving the needle in innovation ecosystems. Please join us for our upcoming sessions. Please join us in Greece. Simos, it has been an amazing pleasure to work with you and colleagues at Compete in Greece and the Delphi Economic Forum. We look forward for the summit. And for all of you, please watch at the camera, open your cameras. We're taking the traditional GFCC session picture here. Thanks for joining. We are having another session this week. On Friday, on the 21st, we're having Innovating Out of Crisis. We are partnering with Japan Science and Technology Agency, and I know there's some colleagues from JST are here today, and we're talking about resilience and innovation and how we can learn from past crises to address the things that are coming up. So join us on the 21st, join us in Greece. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.